The Third Man is one of the greatest films ever made. Do you support or refute that statement? Well, I definitely support it. And today, on this episode of The Adam Kiss Show, I'm going to talk about why. But before we get to any of that, definitely please subscribe below, hit the like button, comment below what other videos you'd like me to do. Feel free to let me know what other movies you'd like me to review or things about filmmaking that you want me to talk about. I'm here for you. So without further ado, let's talk about The Third Man. Hey everyone, and welcome to my living room. Let's just pretend this is Vienna and that the camera is tilted in a Dutch angle to review The Third Man. And that's one of the most noticeable things about The Third Man. You'll often see these tilted Dutch angle shots in the film. I believe that more than half the shots are actually Dutch angle shots. And the reason was because the director, Carol Reed, wanted you to think that something crooked was going on. And he literally wanted to demonstrate that even with the camera angles, which is so interesting. It's definitely not the first movie to use those kind of camera angles, but it's probably the one that everyone thinks of, and it's probably the one with the most pronounced use of it. I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong. If somebody knows of a movie that uses more Dutch angles than Carol Reed's masterpiece, then please let me know. But anyway, let's get right into it. I mean, what is more iconic than Orson Welles' entrance in that movie? And if you've seen the movie, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you haven't seen the movie, you'll know when you watch it. Orson Welles plays the third man in The Third Man. He has perhaps a 5-minute scene in terms of a speaking scene. He's perhaps in the movie for what feels like a max of 10 or 15 minutes. He arrives about an hour and 9 minutes into the movie, but his arrival in that movie is absolutely epic. I mean, Orson Welles once said that that was the greatest role he ever did. Because the whole movie, everyone's talking about him, everyone's building him up, and then finally, he appears in the most dramatic fashion, and then he's gone again. I mean, what an iconic role. I really can't think of many other roles like that. I mean, I think he liked it also because you don't have to put in much effort, and your performance, no matter what, ends up great. His presence is really felt in that movie, and you feel it much more than he's actually there. So your mind kind of fills in the blanks. It's really one of the great performances of all time. Certainly his Cuckoo Clock speech, which I believe was improvised. Green, I believe, didn't actually write that. They ended up needing some more time. So Orson apparently improvised that little wonderful iconic speech, which is one of the most iconic speeches in any movie in history. And with The Third Man, you can't talk about The Third Man if you don't talk about the score. What a score. It's entirely of zither. The story is that Carol Reed met this guy in Vienna when he was at a restaurant, just one of the musicians playing in the background, and he was really impressed by how the background music wasn't overshadowing the conversations in the restaurant. So it was distinct, but it wasn't overpowering. And that's why he loved it. So he took the guy back to his hotel in Vienna, and he had him record some samples, brought them back to England, listened back to them, loved it, and he ended up composing the score. The composer ended up improvising a lot, composing these themes, and they ended up in the movie. I mean, the funny story is that Carol Reed liked the sound the best when it was played under his kitchen table. So he actually had his kitchen table brought into the studio when they recorded the score. So that was kind of the level of detail that went into this film. I believe they did have a couple of units shooting around for a lot of those extra shots. And what's really great is that this movie really, what I love about this movie is you see at night all these shots of the city streets. They were always watered down, hosed down to give them that slick look on camera. It's just a typical quintessential noir. It's noir really at its finest. It's not a detective story per se, but the Joseph Cotten character acts like a detective in the movie. He is essentially the noir detective. The only difference is he's out of his depth. So there's definitely comedic elements to that too. The culture shock of Vienna versus the US. There's so many comedic moments in there as well. There's also so many dark moments. And what I love about it is that it's not just a surface level detective story. It's not like a whodunit or something, or just solve the case and that's it. But it really has deeper themes. I know that the screenwriter, Green, he was very much inspired by a lot of Christian themes that he put into not only this, but so many others of his works. So there's really deep-seated themes and meanings in this, all about, friendship, betrayal, trust, all those kind of things, all the big issues, what's morally right, what's morally wrong. Really, everything is tackled in this movie. It's also really interesting to see both Joseph Cotten and Orson Welles playing friends in this movie. It's a little bit of a throwback to Citizen Kane, where they also play friends who end up having a very strained relationship. It's really kind of the same dynamic here. In Citizen Kane, Cotton's character is also kind of acts like a check on Orson Welles' character. He kind of checks his ambition, checks his ego, things like that. He's the more reasonable one. It's kind of the same dynamic here. And that's a dynamic that I feel that Joseph Cotten played in a lot of movies. He was often the more reasonable character, not always, obviously. And then Orson Welles was always, or often, I should say, not always, but he was often playing these very egocentric characters, these really larger-than-life characters who end up being checked in some way, who end up being brought back down to earth. It's really something that he did very well in so many movies. And I love the dynamic between the two characters. You can obviously tell that these are people who have acted with each other for a long time, who've known each other for a long time. I mean, to my recollection, Orson Welles' main speaking scene is really just one scene, and that's that Ferris wheel scene, and it's a substantial scene, definitely. It's an incredible scene. It's on that Ferris wheel in Vienna, and it's the entire scene is played out as they make one circle around that, and it's when Joseph Cotten finds out that Orson Welles' character, the third man, is actually alive. Harry Lime is alive. And so this is when they meet for the first time. And however, it's not a joyous reunion, because it would have been a joyous reunion had he met Harry Lime when he first arrived in Vienna. But now that he knows not only that he thought he was dead, he realizes that he faked his death, and he realizes the kind of criminal things he's been up to. It's very much a strained meeting. There's a very tense, interesting moment when you're not sure if Orson Welles may actually kill Joseph Cotten. That's definitely a tense moment, and then he laughs it off. But who knows if he was serious or not? But that's the beauty of great acting, great scenes like that. They're so dynamic. There's so much depth to them, and there's really so much depth to this movie. So it's definitely one of my favorite movies. I really can't recommend it enough. One of the great noir films, and one of the great films in general. A great direction, great script, great cinematography, and great performances. What more can you ask for in a movie? So that's my review of The Third Man, and definitely follow me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, every platform out there. I'm on there. If it's a social media platform, you can be sure I'm on. Definitely like the video, comment below to see what other videos you'd like me to do. And that's all I've got for today.